And welcome back to the Deep Rock Sports Extra in this edition of our Central Tech Technically Perfect. And I'm with Ish Engel as we take a look back at last week's exciting game, Ish, against Berry Hill. 28-27 loss, but a lot of good things happened. Let's give a kind of a recap here on all the stats that we had from last week's game.
Well, the good news is you can see that the Tigers did perform pretty well last week against a very tough team. Tigers won first downs. We had 19, 13 for the Chiefs. Total yards, 403 for Cushing, 358 for Berry Hill. Passing yards was the only thing they beat us in. They had 160 and we had 157. Rushing, though, 246 to 198. I think we gave up a lot more rushing yards than we wanted to, especially to number 7, Chad Dillard. 148 yards from that young man. I don't remember us giving up that many yards to anybody in several years.
Yeah, well, Dillard and Walker, I mean, the big runners last week. Same for Walker. I mean, did you have any?
32 for Walker. 10 carries for 32 yards. We actually held him in check, but Dillard goes and basically was straight up the middle.
Yeah.
And he went left or right, we got him, but it was straight up the middle. We kind of got hit a little bit. Penalties, we won penalties.
Yeah, that didn't seem to be the thing that plagued the whole game last Friday night, was just laundry all over the field all night long, on both sides, basically.
Yes, we had 11 for 80 yards. They had 8 for 75 yards. 2 of them were that back-to-back 15, which really was nice for us at the time. We had also 3 turnovers, and I think that's what they always say is if you lose the turnover battle, you lose the game. They had no turnovers. We had both of them were interceptions, and one of them at that key time with just about two minutes left in the game. We had 1 or 2 fumbles, but we recovered both of them. They had 1 fumble and they recovered their own. And then neither team really punted that much. Total of 5 punts of the game, 3 for Berry Hill and 2 for us. Overall, we had some outstanding performances. Ian Jones, 10 completions on 15 attempts, 157 yards, 2 touchdowns, of course the 2 picks. Ian Jones was over 100 yards rushing. I think Jim Perry talked about the double-triple, and it's a nice thing to have. 21 carries, 122 yards. Our next leading rusher was Josh Houchins, 12 carries, 75 yards. We had 3 people that averaged 6 yards per carry in there. Kevin Beeler also had a...
Well, he got on there at least for 1 play, I think, but he had a good run on that, I think.
6 yards.
6 yards on it. So, trying to split it up there a little bit or giving somebody a break at the time or whatever, but averaging over 6 yards a carry is pretty good.
Very, very good. And we also, Guy Parker had 4.8 yards per carry. So, we had several people doing some good things. England Honeybus, 4 catches, 56 yards, and Blake Burden, 3 for 33 yards. And, of course, that 51 yards to Watkins, which was just a thing of beauty.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll talk about that a little bit more as we get into the Red Dirt Roundtable and kind of break down the game a little bit. But Tyler Watkins with a huge catch and carry there, 51 yards, and that was a big thing. Special teams really seem to be the difference, and we talked about that the week before coming into it because Bosworth had kind of got off to a slow start kicking, extra points, and that kind of played true, I guess, the other night against Berry Hill. Berry Hill had a really good kicker.
Yes, they did. And you almost read my mind right there because I wanted to talk about someone who does not really show up in the stats. 2 rush attempts for 5 total yards. But Trey Morris, kickoff returns, punt returns, he was very influential for us. And like you say, we had some weak areas with the kicking game, but we did have some strengths there. So overall, that balanced.
Yeah. Well, a lot of good things that came out of that game as we look ahead to next week with Cleveland. Any information that you can tell us on, give us a little insight on Cleveland?
There's not a lot of stats out there for Cleveland right now, so it's hard to get too much of a feel. However, I know that they beat Hominy in the first week. Hominy's Class A, high-scoring game, 49-42. And then last week they were in a defensive struggle with Manford. It was 7-7 at the half. In the fourth quarter, Cleveland got a touchdown and then a safety to cap it, and they won 16-7.
So did Hominy beat Cleveland?
Hominy did beat Cleveland.
Okay, so Hominy beat Cleveland, so they're 1-1.
1-1, yes,
on the
sir.
season. Then, so that's kind of strange that a Class A school, beating Cleveland and then Cleveland coming on top of Manford at the end.
Right. And like I say, every account for about the Manford game, it was a tight defensive struggle. Neither team could really move the ball very well.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens as we go to Cleveland this week, your first out of town game contest there. And like you say, is there any notables coming back for the Cleveland team that you picked up on?
I didn't really see any, not since the last time we played them. They've lost several of the names we actually recognize.
Yeah, Stollard was the big one a couple of years ago. Went on to play some D1. So anyway, Ish, thank you so much. We appreciate this. Central Tech sponsoring our Technically Perfect Stats here this week. Good sponsor for Central Tech at campuses both in Drumright and Sepulveda. That's going to wrap it up. We'll be back with more of the Deep Rock Sports Extra right after this.